So for our profiles update here, let's say that we only ever want the profile and description to update whenever both of these saves actually happen successfully. For example, at present, if we were to invalidate our profiles update by doing something like profile.userID and setting that to some user that does not exist inside of our database, this save call will then result in an error because it won't be able to find a user thanks to our foreign key constraint with whatever this ID is here. If we give that a save, jump back into our browser, and let's switch our John Doe edit to John Doe edit 2. And let's switch our biography to John Doe edit 2 to match the name and hit update here. We do indeed get our error as expected because of our foreign key constraint. But now if we go back into our profile edit page, so if we go back and refresh just to make sure that we have the latest data, you'll see that things actually updated despite us running into an error, meaning that not all of our operations completed successfully. And that's where transactions come into. A transaction is essentially going to keep track of the changes that we're making and provide us a way to either commit them fully to the database long term or roll them back to undo them. So first, what we're going to want to do is from everything up through our profile down through our save changes, let's wrap this inside of a try catch call. So try catch just like so, and paste our profile query along with our saves inside of there. Then let's go ahead and create a transaction. So we'll do const trx, short for transaction, equals await, import our DB from AdonisJS Lucid Services DB and call dot transaction. This will return back a new instance of a transaction for us, which contains a commit and rollback method doing exactly what we described earlier. So if everything completed successfully and we run through all of our calls that we have here, we'll want to await trx and commit those changes to our database. If we run into an error at any point in time, we'll want to await trx dot roll back those changes to undo them rather than committing them. The next thing that we need to do is actually bind this transaction to these calls. And since all of our calls here actually go through our user, we'll want to bind that directly to our user. So we can do auth user exclamation point to assert it. And there's a method called use transaction that we can call and pass in the transaction that we want our user model to use. And this cascades through as we query things with our relationships. So for example, inside of our profile service with our find call, we're using our user model's relationship to actually query out the profile, meaning that the returned profile will then be attached to that same transaction as well. If you don't have that system, what you could always do is just use transaction on the profile, just the same as we are with our user here. Since we do have that cascading through our relationship though, we don't need to worry about that in this particular use case. You can also pass transactions through to other calls as well. So for example, if we were doing await, I'm going to go ahead and just import our profile model here temporarily and call create. We'll pass in our data. The second argument is where we can pass in a client, which is a transaction client. So we could create with a transaction just like so. And a lot of these static methods work the exact same way, where you have query options as the second argument, where you can pass in a client for your actual transaction. Okay, let's go back a couple of steps and let's give this a run. So first, let's go ahead and put our error back. So profile.userID equals some ID that definitely doesn't exist inside of our database. Let's go ahead and jump back into our browser and let's try to switch this to a 3. Let's update our profile and you'll see that we ran into an error, but since we're now catching that error, we just get returned back here, which is what we're specifying to do at the end of our handler. So that's expected behavior. But in addition to that, you also see that our 3 change did not persist in either of these two contexts. Additionally, it looks like Firefox was holding on to the edit 2 value from our biography there from our initial error. Cool. Let's do a hard refresh just to make sure it's not holding on to anything else. There we go. Okay, cool. So let's try that once more. 3 there, 3 there, update. And you'll see it goes right back to how it was prior to that change, because neither of those two changes are actually saving into the database now because our transaction is being rolled back due to this foreign key constraint error. If we remove that error, jump back into our browser, and now we try to switch these to 3, give that an update, you'll see everything goes through A-OK. Give this a refresh. Everything still works A-OK. It'd probably be good to go ahead and display some form of an error whenever this does actually happen. So let's go ahead and grab our session, scroll back down, and we can do session.flash, and we can flash something into our errors bag and call that maybe something like form with a message of something went wrong or whatever you'd like there for the message. Give that a save, and then we'll jump back into our edit page. And actually, let's jump back into our login page and grab this error right here. Jump back into our edit page now. Paste it in above our inputs. And instead of looking for invalid credentials, we're just going to be looking for a form error. Our message will remain the same. Give that a save. And actually, before we test that out, we do need to add our error back in. So do profile.error user ID equals some non-existent ID there. And now let's test it out. So switch those to 4, update, and there we go. So now we get something went wrong whenever something actually goes wrong and our transaction gets rolled back.